What does it mean when a disengagement meant to reduce conflict begins to redefine control on the ground? And how does that shift affect long-term deterrence between two nuclear-armed states? One figure frames the issue clearly. Analysts estimate that between 1,000 and 2,000 square kilometers of territory claimed by India has become operationally inaccessible since 2020. This video examines how disengagement agreements in eastern Ladakh may be reshaping the line of actual control in ways that extend beyond immediate de-escalation, and why the consequences could influence regional stability far beyond the Himalayas. If the current trajectory continues, the fundamental change is not the absence of conflict, but the gradual redefinition of access, patrol patterns, and forward presence. If disengagement fails, the region risks renewed confrontation under even more militarized conditions. If it succeeds only partially, the result may be a stable but altered frontier where previous operational norms no longer apply. Each pathway carries different implications for deterrence, escalation control, and political credibility. The roots of this situation trace back to May 2020, when forces from China moved into multiple sectors of eastern Ladakh, including Galwan Valley, Pangong Tso, Gogra-Hot Springs, Depsang Plains, and Demchok. These movements occurred during a period when India was heavily affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Chinese deployments established forward positions and blocked Indian patrols from accessing areas that had been routinely visited for decades. The confrontation escalated in June 2020 during the Galwan Valley clash, where 20 Indian soldiers were killed in close-quarters combat. China acknowledged casualties, but did not provide detailed figures, contributing to uncertainty in Indian strategic assessments. The incident marked a breakdown in long-standing confidence-building mechanisms that had governed the border since the late 20th century. India responded by deploying tens of thousands of troops, along with artillery, armor, and air assets, creating one of the largest military buildups along the frontier in decades. In August 2020, Indian forces occupied key heights along the Kailash Range south of Pangong Tso, gaining observation over Chinese positions and supply routes. This created temporary tactical leverage during negotiations. At the political level, Narendra Modi's government signaled that normalization would depend on restoring the pre-April 2020 status quo. Simultaneously, India accelerated infrastructure development through the Border Roads Organization and implemented economic measures such as restrictions on Chinese applications and investments. These actions indicated an attempt to combine military, economic, and diplomatic pressure. However, over 21 rounds of core commander-level talks, the negotiation framework shifted. Instead of full restoration, agreements focused on disengagement through separation and the creation of buffer zones. By 2022, arrangements were reached at Galwan, Pangong, and Gogra-Hot Springs, each involving zones where neither side would patrol. These buffer zones altered the military map in ways that became increasingly evident over time. Because Chinese forces had advanced closer to contested points before disengagement, equal withdrawals resulted in unequal outcomes. Indian troops lost access to areas they had previously patrolled, while Chinese forces remained positioned closer to their forward infrastructure. At Pangong Tso, Indian patrols no longer moved beyond Finger 3 toward Finger 8, despite long-standing claims over the entire stretch. In Depsang, restrictions near patrol points 10 to 13 have limited access to areas estimated at roughly 900 square kilometers. These changes are significant because control along the line of actual control is determined less by formal claims and more by sustained physical presence. In October 2024, an agreement covering Depsang and Demchok was presented by Indian officials as a breakthrough. Vikram Misri indicated that disengagement would resolve remaining friction points. while Rajnath Singh stated that patrol access would return to earlier levels. The timing coincided with diplomatic engagement between Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping during the BRICS summit, yet the agreement did not address earlier buffer zones, which remained in place. As a result, critics, including retired military officers and diplomats, argue that India accepted a partial restoration while China retained advantages gained in 2020. This gap between official messaging and ground realities has become a central point of domestic debate. Satellite imagery from late 2025 and early 2026 added another layer to the analysis. Observers identified new Chinese infrastructure near buffer zones, including shelters, storage facilities, and logistics nodes. Such developments suggest long-term planning, as permanent structures typically indicate expectations of sustained deployment rather than temporary positioning. This raises a critical question about intent and trajectory. One scenario considers what happens if current arrangements continue without modification. In that case, buffer zones may gradually solidify into de facto boundaries, reducing the likelihood of immediate clashes, but embedding structural advantages for China. Over time, this could influence India's ability to monitor and respond to developments along the frontier. A second scenario examines what happens if India seeks to reverse these changes. This would likely involve intensified patrol efforts, accelerated infrastructure development, and firmer negotiating positions tied explicitly to pre-2020 conditions. Such actions could restore some operational access, but also increase the risk of renewed confrontation, especially in areas where both sides maintain large forward deployments. The broader implications extend beyond the immediate border. India's strategic planning increasingly considers the possibility of a two-front challenge involving China and Pakistan. Constraints in Ladakh could affect force allocation and readiness in other sectors, complicating overall defense posture. Politically, the situation presents challenges for Narendra Modi's government. The administration has consistently maintained that no territory has been lost, yet visible restrictions on patrol access create a perception gap. Critics interpret this as a sign of policy inconsistency or miscalculation, while supporters emphasize the importance of avoiding escalation. The debate reflects differing assessments of risk, credibility, and long-term strategy. From China's perspective, the approach aligns with a pattern of incremental positioning combined with negotiation. By advancing positions and then stabilizing them through disengagement agreements, Beijing can reduce immediate tensions while retaining operational depth. This method does not require large-scale conflict, but relies on sustained presence and infrastructure development. At the systemic level, the Ladakh situation illustrates how modern territorial competition often operates below the threshold of open war. Control is established through logistics, patrol patterns, and infrastructure rather than decisive battles. This shifts the focus from short-term outcomes to long-term positioning. The central issue is whether disengagement represents a pause in competition or a transition to a new equilibrium. Watch for changes in patrol access, infrastructure expansion, and negotiation frameworks. These indicators will determine whether the current arrangements remain temporary or evolve into a lasting redefinition of the frontier, shaping the balance of power in ways that extend far beyond eastern Ladakh.